The night was quiet inside the huge mansion. The lights in the hallways were dim, and the city outside was silent. The billionaire, Mr. Adrian Cole, lay on his king-sized bed. His eyes were half closed, but his mind was fully awake. He was not a man who trusted easily, and tonight, his sharp instincts were telling him something was wrong. For weeks, Adrian had noticed small changes in his room. A pen moved from its place, a drawer left slightly open, the sound of light footsteps when he should have been alone. At first, he ignored it. Maybe it was his imagination. Maybe the maids were just careless. But the more he observed, the more he felt that someone had been entering his private space. Tonight, he decided to be sure. He did not lock his door, and he left his desk drawer half open. Then he turned off the lights and pretended to sleep. His breathing became slow, steady, like a man lost in deep dreams. But his ears were sharp, waiting for the smallest sound. Minutes passed. The silence was heavy. Only the ticking of the golden clock on his bedside table filled the room. Then, he heard it. A faint creak of the door, careful and slow, as if the person behind it wanted to stay hidden. Adrian's heart did not race. He had trained himself long ago to stay calm. He kept his eyes shut, his body still. Soft footsteps entered the room. They were too light for a grown man, too uncertain for a professional thief. It was someone young, someone afraid. Adrian's mind began to race with questions. Who could it be? What could they want from him at this late hour? The footsteps came closer, moving towards his desk. The air in the room felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The billionaire wanted to open his eyes, to confront the intruder immediately, but he waited. He wanted to see what they would do when they thought he was sleeping. Slowly, he heard the sound of a drawer sliding open. The soft rustle of paper followed. Whoever it was, they were searching for something. The person was nervous. He could hear the faint tremble of hands touching objects, the quiet gasps of breath. Adrian thought of the staff working in his mansion. There were many servants, but only one lived here with her child, the maid, Mrs. Lane, and her teenage daughter, Emily. Could it be her? The idea shocked him. Why would a young girl dare to sneak into a billionaire's private study? Was she stealing? Or was she searching for something else? Adrian's mind went back to his own childhood, to the days when he had nothing. He remembered sneaking into places he didn't belong, just to get a piece of bread or a few coins. The thought softened him for a second, but then he reminded himself this was his home, his private space. And no one was allowed to cross that line. The sound of the drawer closing pulled him back. The footsteps shifted again, moving slowly, almost nervously, as if the person was deciding whether to leave or continue searching. Adrian's lips almost curved into a smile. He admired the courage, but he also knew courage mixed with desperation could be dangerous. The girl, or whoever it was, stood only a few feet away from his bed now. He could feel her presence. His trained instincts caught even the smallest movement in the dark. She was staring at him, maybe checking if he was still asleep. The silence between them was like a rope pulled tight, ready to snap at any moment. Adrian kept his breathing steady, but inside, he was preparing himself. If she tried to harm him, he would act fast. If she tried to run, he would catch her. And if she dared to touch anything else in his room, he would know exactly what kind of person she truly was. Seconds passed. The billionaire remained still, the intruder remained frozen. It was a battle of silence, a test of patience. The suspense grew heavier with every tick of the golden clock. Then, the faintest whisper broke the silence. A trembling voice, so soft it could have been mistaken for the wind. "I'm sorry, Mama." Adrian's eyes snapped open for just a second, but he quickly closed them again, not ready to reveal himself. His suspicion was now certain. It was Emily, the maid's daughter. But what was she doing here? What was she searching for that made her risk everything in the middle of the night? He kept his secret act alive, pretending to sleep, waiting for her next move. The story was no longer about a simple theft. It was about something deeper, something hidden. And Adrian Cole, the billionaire, was going to uncover it. The night was far from over. Adrian Cole remained perfectly still on his bed, eyes shut, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. To Emily, it looked as if the billionaire was lost in dreams. She stood frozen in the dark room, her small fingers trembling as they gripped the edge of his desk. Her heart beat so loud she thought he might hear it. Every second felt like an hour. She glanced at the door, then back at the man sleeping on the bed. Should she run? Or should she continue searching? She took a shaky breath. Running away would mean failure, and failure was not an option tonight. She turned back to the desk and quietly pulled open another drawer. Inside were papers, files, and an expensive golden pen. She pushed them aside, searching for something only she knew about. Adrian's ears caught every sound, the tiny scrape of wood, the rustle of paper. His mind was sharp, and though he did not move, he studied every detail. The girl was not moving like a thief. She wasn't taking anything valuable. She was searching, but for what? Emily bent lower, pulling out a small wooden box from the back of the drawer. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were letters, old photographs, and a few official documents. She flipped through them with desperation in her eyes. And then, she found it. A folded envelope with a doctor's seal. She pressed it against her chest, relief flooding her face. A tear slipped down her cheek as she whispered again, "I found it, Mama. I found it." Adrian's heart skipped a beat. An envelope? A doctor's seal? He wanted to sit up, to demand answers, but he forced himself to wait. He wanted to know more before he revealed he was awake. Emily clutched the envelope tightly, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. She moved slowly toward the door, her footsteps soft, her shoulders trembling. Just when she thought she was safe, a deep voice broke the silence. "Going somewhere?" Emily froze. The sound of his voice struck her like lightning. Her body stiffened, her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned her head. The billionaire was no longer asleep. His sharp eyes were open, watching her with a cold, unreadable expression. The envelope nearly slipped from her hand. "Mr. Cole," she stammered, her voice trembling. Adrian sat up in bed, his tall figure rising in the dim light. His gaze moved from her pale, terrified face to the envelope in her hand. His tone was calm, but dangerous, like a storm waiting to break. "You want to explain," he said slowly, "why you are in my room at midnight, holding something that belongs to me?" Emily's lips parted, but no words came out. Her eyes filled with tears. Her legs felt weak, as if they would give way any second. She shook her head, whispering, I'm sorry. I didn't mean." Adrian stood and walked toward her, his footsteps heavy against the silence. Emily took a step back, clutching the envelope tighter. She looked like a trapped bird, ready to break at the smallest touch. "Sorry?" Adrian's voice was sharp now. "Do you think sorry explains why you broke into my private study? Do you think sorry explains why you're stealing from me?" Her tears fell faster. She shook her head desperately. "No. I wasn't stealing. Please believe me, I wasn't. I needed this. I had to." Adrian stopped only a foot away from her. His piercing eyes met hers. He could see the fear, the guilt, and something else, pain. This was not the face of a greedy thief. This was the face of someone desperate, someone carrying a burden far too heavy for her young shoulders. But still, he did not let his guard down. "Then tell me," he demanded. "What is so important that you had to risk everything to take it from me?" Emily's lips trembled. She clutched the envelope even tighter, pressing it against her chest as if her very life depended on it. Her tears blurred her vision, but her voice finally broke through the fear. It's for my mother," she whispered. Adrian's brows furrowed, confusion flickering in his eyes. For her mother? What could possibly be in that envelope that connected to the maid, Mrs. Lane? Emily's knees shook. She lowered her head, ashamed, and her tears fell onto the polished floor. "I didn't want to do this, but I had no choice. She's sick. She's dying, and this paper, it's the only hope I have. Her sobs filled the silent room. The billionaire stood still, his expression unreadable. His sharp mind searched for answers. What was in that envelope? Why did Emily believe it was connected to her mother's life? The night had begun with suspicion. Now, it was turning into a mystery far deeper than Adrian Cole had imagined. And the truth was only just beginning to surface. The room was heavy with silence. Emily's quiet sobs echoed softly, mixing with the ticking of the golden clock. Her small hands clutched the envelope against her chest as if it were a shield. Adrian Cole stood in front of her, tall and powerful, his sharp eyes fixed on the trembling girl. The man who was feared by business rivals and respected by the world now stared at a frightened teenager in his own room. He spoke slowly, his voice low but firm. You broke into my study. You touched my private things. And now you hold something that does not belong to you. Do you understand what you have done? Emily lowered her head, unable to meet his eyes. Her lips trembled. Yes. I know. I'm sorry, but I had no choice. Adrian narrowed his eyes. His tone grew harsher. No choice? You always have a choice. You could have asked. You could have spoken. But instead, you sneak into my room like a thief in the night. Her knees weakened at his words, and she nearly fell. Tears streamed down her face, but still, she refused to let go of the envelope. Adrian noticed this. The way she clung to it was not like someone holding stolen money or jewelry. It was like someone holding on to life itself. His curiosity grew stronger, even as his anger burned. He stepped closer, his voice sharp. What is in that envelope? Show me. Emily shook her head quickly, backing away until her back hit the wall. Her wide eyes filled with fear. No. I can't, please, don't take it, it's for Mama, she needs it, she'll die without it. Her words hit him unexpectedly, like an arrow piercing through armor. For a moment, his anger wavered. He studied her face, the desperation, the fear, the love hidden in her trembling voice. This wasn't greed. This was survival. But Adrian Cole was not a man who accepted excuses easily. He straightened, his tone icy. If your mother is sick, why steal? Why not ask me for help? Emily's eyes widened with pain. She hugged the envelope tighter and whispered, because people like you don't help people like us. The words struck him harder than he expected. For a second, silence fell between them. Adrian's jaw tightened. He had spent his whole life building walls around his heart, keeping people out, never trusting anyone. And now, this fragile girl had spoken words that shook something deep inside him. He took a deep breath, his voice quieter now but still commanding. Emily, look at me. Slowly, with hesitation, she lifted her tear-filled eyes to his. You are standing in front of a man who has everything, Adrian said. Power. Wealth. Respect. And yet, you dare to believe I would not help? He paused, his gaze sharp. Tell me what this is about. Tell me the truth. Right now. Emily's lips quivered. Her heart pounded so fast she could barely breathe. She wanted to run, but she knew there was no escape. Finally, she held the envelope out in shaking hands. Her voice broke as she whispered, It's my mother's medical report. I found it here, on your desk. I don't know why you had it, but I needed it. The doctor said without this paper, she can't get the treatment she needs. I didn't want to steal. I just wanted to save her. Adrian's eyes flickered with surprise. A medical report? His mind raced. Why would Mrs. Lane's documents be inside his drawer? He had no memory of placing them there. Did someone else in his staff bring them to him? Or had his personal assistant hidden them away without telling him? His confusion only deepened the mystery. But one thing was clear, the girl before him wasn't lying. Her tears were real, her fear genuine, her desperation undeniable. Emily fell to her knees, holding the envelope tightly against her chest. Her voice was broken and raw. Please, Mr. Cole, punish me if you want. Fire my mother, throw us out, but don't take this from me. She doesn't have much time left. This is all I have. This is all she has. Adrian stared at her in silence. A storm of emotions swirled inside him: anger, suspicion, confusion, and something he hadn't felt in years: pity. For the first time that night, the powerful billionaire did not know what to say. The confrontation had begun with anger and accusations. But now, it was turning into something far more complicated. And Adrian Cole had to decide whether to be the ruthless billionaire the world knew or something different. Emily's sobs echoed softly through the grand room. She stayed on her knees, holding the envelope like it was her last breath of hope. The billionaire, Adrian Cole, stood tall before her, his sharp gaze fixed on her fragile figure. For a long moment, he said nothing. His silence was heavier than his words. The ticking clock filled the room, each second stretching endlessly. Finally, Adrian's deep voice broke through the silence. Stand up. Emily wiped her tears with the back of her trembling hand. Slowly, she rose, though her knees shook beneath her. Her eyes never left the floor. She was too afraid to meet his gaze. Adrian stepped closer, his expression unreadable. Tell me everything, he demanded. No lies. No excuses. I want the truth. Emily bit her lip, her voice cracking as she spoke. Mama, my mother, she's very sick. 4 months, she's been coughing blood, getting weaker every day. She tried to hide it from me, but I knew. I begged her to see a doctor, but she said we couldn't afford it. We barely have money for food. Her hands tightened on the envelope, and tears spilled down her cheeks again. Finally, when she collapsed last week, I took her to the hospital. They said it's serious. They said she needs treatment right away, or her voice broke. She covered her mouth, unable to finish. Adrian's eyes narrowed, but not in anger, more in thought. He had seen people beg for money before, but this was different. Emily wasn't asking for gold or luxury. She was fighting for her mother's life. Go on, he said firmly. Emily nodded, forcing herself to continue. The doctor gave me this report. But when I went to pay for the medicine, they told me someone had already collected the papers and bills under my mother's name. I didn't understand. I thought they made a mistake. Then I saw one of your assistants at the hospital. I followed him, and... Her eyes lifted slowly, finally meeting Adrian's. And I found the report here. In your drawer. I don't know why. I don't know if you planned to help or if someone was hiding it from you. All I knew was, without this, Mama has no chance. Her voice broke into sobs again, and she pressed the envelope to her chest. That's why I came here. That's why I risked everything. Not for me, but for her. Please, Mr. Cole, you have to believe me. Adrian stared at her, his mind a whirlwind. He remembered hiring Mrs. Lane years ago, after finding her working 2 jobs just to survive. He had respected her honesty, her quiet strength. But he had never known she was hiding such pain. And now, her daughter stood before him, not as a thief, but as a desperate child fighting for the woman who had sacrificed everything. For the first time in years, Adrian felt something unusual stir inside his chest. A memory from long ago. A memory of his own mother, pale and weak, coughing in the dark while he, just a boy, could do nothing to help. He had buried that pain under layers of wealth and power. But tonight, Emily's trembling voice tore through those walls. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Emily. Her eyes widened. His tone was no longer sharp, but heavy, almost human. Do you realize what could have happened if I hadn't pretended to sleep? Do you realize the risk you took? She nodded, her tears still flowing. Yes. I knew. But I didn't care. If it means saving her, I would do it again. Adrian's chest tightened at her words. He studied her for a long moment, then reached out his hand. Emily flinched, clutching the envelope tighter. I'm not going to take it away, Adrian said quietly. I want to see it. Give it to me. With trembling hands, Emily slowly extended the envelope. Adrian opened it carefully, pulling out the medical papers. His eyes scanned the words diagnosis, treatment plan, urgent care required. The doctor's note was clear: without immediate attention, Mrs. Lane's condition could become fatal. Adrian exhaled slowly, closing the file. His eyes lifted to Emily. For once, the hard, cold man looked almost human. He placed the envelope back in her hands. "You should have told me," he said, his voice softer now. "You didn't need to sneak in here. You didn't need to break the rules." Emily shook her head, fresh tears spilling. "I tried, but I was afraid. Afraid you would fire her. Afraid you would think we were a burden. We are nothing compared to your world." Adrian's jaw clenched. Her words cut deep, because he knew they were true. He had built an empire where people feared him, not trusted him. And now, even a sick maid and her daughter thought he had no heart. For a long moment, silence filled the room again. Adrian turned toward the window, staring into the night. Inside him, a battle had begun between the ruthless billionaire he had always been and the man Emily's words were forcing him to remember. The truth was now revealed. But the decision of what to do next still hung in the air. And for the first time in years, Adrian Cole didn't know what choice he would make. The mansion was silent, but inside Adrian Cole's mind, a storm was raging. He stood near the tall window, staring at the city lights outside, while Emily stood behind him, clutching the envelope to her chest. Her quiet sobs had softened, but her presence filled the room like a shadow that refused to leave. Adrian's hands tightened behind his back. He was a man used to controlling people, businesses, entire empires. But tonight, one desperate girl had shaken him more than all his rivals combined. Should he punish her for breaking into his private space? Should he fire her mother for raising a daughter bold enough to trespass? Or should he do what his heart, buried under years of ice, was whispering, "Help her"? His jaw clenched as memories surfaced. Memories he had spent decades burying. A young boy, barely 10, standing outside a hospital. A weak mother coughing blood inside, while the doctor shook his head because they could not pay. A boy screaming, begging, powerless. And the cold truth: money decides who lives and who dies. Adrian closed his eyes tightly, forcing the memory away. He had promised himself long ago never to be weak again, never to feel, never to let emotions control him. That promise had made him a billionaire. That promise had built his empire. But tonight, Emily's trembling voice, her tears, her courage, it had cracked something inside him. Behind him, her small voice whispered again. "Please, Mr. Cole, don't hate Mama. Don't fire her. She worked so hard for you, she never asked for anything. This is all my fault. If you want to punish someone, punish me." Adrian turned sharply. Her words hit him like a blade. She stood there, fragile but defiant, ready to sacrifice herself for her mother. His eyes locked on hers, and for a long moment, neither spoke. The golden clock ticked, filling the silence with its merciless rhythm. Finally, Adrian stepped forward, his face unreadable. "Do you know what people call me, Emily?" His voice was low, heavy. She shook her head slowly, her tears still falling. "They call me ruthless. Cold. A man without mercy." He leaned closer, his sharp gaze cutting into her. "Do you think someone like me forgives easily? Do you think I look at thieves and say, 'It's fine, I understand'?" Emily's lips trembled. She gripped the envelope tighter. I don't know. But I had no choice. If I lose my mother, I lose everything. Even if you hate me, I had to try." Her voice cracked at the end, but her eyes did not turn away. That courage, standing in front of the most feared billionaire, refusing to back down, struck something deep inside him. Adrian exhaled slowly. He reached out his hand. Emily flinched, expecting him to snatch the envelope. But instead, his hand rested gently on her shoulder. His voice softened, almost strange to his own ears. You remind me of someone I lost a long time ago. Emily blinked in confusion. Someone you lost? Adrian's eyes darkened, his gaze drifting away. My mother. Silence fell. Emily's breath caught. She had never imagined the cold billionaire had wounds hidden beneath his armor of wealth. She died, Adrian continued, his tone low, heavy with a pain he rarely allowed himself to feel. Because we couldn't afford the medicine. Because no one helped us. His hand dropped back to his side. That night, I swore I would never be weak again. Emily's tears blurred her vision. For the first time, she saw not just a billionaire, but a man carrying scars just like hers. Her trembling voice whispered, "Then, you understand. You understand what it feels like to lose someone because of money." Adrian's jaw tightened. His heart warred with his mind. One side screamed at him to remain ruthless, to teach her a lesson, to protect his pride. The other side whispered of the boy he once was, begging for someone to care. The room grew heavier, the silence louder. Adrian turned his back to her again, his hands tightening into fists. This was his test. His entire life had been built on shutting his heart away. But tonight, that wall was cracking. Emily waited, her breath shallow, her tears endless. Would he throw them out? Would he destroy them? Or would he finally let the boy inside him speak? The answer had not yet come. But one thing was certain, whatever Adrian Cole decided tonight would change all their lives forever. The night felt endless inside the mansion. Adrian Cole stood with his back to Emily, staring at the city through the tall glass window. His reflection looked back at him, cold, powerful, untouchable. But inside, he was anything but calm. Behind him, Emily stood frozen, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. Her tears had dried, but her eyes were swollen and full of fear. She didn't dare move, didn't dare speak. Every second of silence was torture. Finally, Adrian turned. His expression was unreadable, his sharp eyes still carrying the weight of power. Emily held her breath, bracing for the worst. But instead of anger, his voice was quiet. Give me the envelope. Her heart dropped. She hesitated, clutching it tighter. Please, don't take it. Without this, Mama. I said, Adrian repeated, his tone firm but calm, give it to me. Emily's hands shook as she slowly placed the envelope into his hand. She bowed her head, whispering, do whatever you want, but please, don't hurt Mama. Fire us if you must, but let me keep this. Adrian opened the envelope once more, his eyes scanning the medical report. His face remained unreadable, but inside, memories of his own mother's suffering cut deep. After a long silence, he folded the paper carefully and looked at Emily. You were wrong about one thing. Emily's heart raced. Wrong? He nodded. You said people like me don't help people like you. His eyes softened, though his voice was still steady. Maybe that was true once. But not tonight. Emily blinked, confused. What do you mean? Adrian walked toward his desk, pressed a button on the phone, and spoke with authority. Prepare a transfer to St. Mary's Hospital. Full payment for Mrs. Lane's treatment. Immediate admission. I want the best doctors on her case. Emily gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. You mean? Adrian looked at her, his face calm but his eyes carrying something rare warmth. Your mother will get the treatment she needs. And you, his voice grew firm again, will never have to sneak into my study at night ever again. If you need something, you come to me. Do you understand? Her tears flowed again, but this time they were not from fear. They were from relief, from gratitude so overwhelming it made her legs weak. She nodded quickly, her voice breaking. Yes, Mr. Cole. Thank you so much. She fell to her knees again, but Adrian immediately lifted her gently by the shoulders. Stand up. You don't kneel to me. Not for this. Not ever. Emily looked up at him through her tears, her heart too full for words. For the first time, the ruthless billionaire didn't look ruthless at all. He looked human. Adrian turned back to the window, his hands resting behind his back. His voice was calm, almost distant. "Don't thank me. Thank your courage. You reminded me of something I had forgotten a long time ago." Emily tilted her head, her voice soft. "What's that?" He glanced at her, and for the briefest moment, his hardened face carried the shadow of a sad smile. "That money means nothing, if it cannot save the ones we love." Emily's tears fell harder. She clutched the envelope to her chest once more, but this time it was not out of fear. It was out of hope. The golden clock ticked on, marking the end of a night filled with suspicion, confrontation, and truth. And inside the billionaire's mansion, a ruthless man's heart, once buried under years of ice, had finally begun to thaw.